I'm gonna get
I'm
douche
cranking it.
tube
I'm
going
cranking
so
it
I can
on.
watch
Here
the
we
chat.
go. And boom. Okay, good. Live. I'm gonna hit record. Let's do it. Here with the great Steve Falconer once again. Stoked for this one. Always a good time with Steve. I'm gonna hit record, gents. Let's do it. View. Boom. There's two settings here. Okay. And boom, we're back for another episode of Alfacast. I'm Mike Winner, and I'm here as always with the maestro of the Alfa Vedic Symphony, Dr. Bear Paul Lando, coming to you live and direct from the great state of Jefferson, where freedom reigns supreme up here on the Smith River. Glorious summer day. The temps have dropped, Bear, at least over here, thank God. It was a scorcher.
Yeah, fog bank came in. We had to go out to the coast yesterday, and it was actually chilly with the fog. Hey, Mike, I have to ask you a question. Do you have your mic on?
Oh, let me check here. You know what? I don't. That's a rookie move. I'm going to stop recording and we're going to start again. This is Hey, you were right, Steve. Should have listened to you.
There you are. There you are.
Okay,
Dude,
there
there you
we
are,
are.
man. Now I can hear you. Yeah.
There we go. I was so excited to talk to Steve in the pre-show that I forgot to even put my mic on.
Dude,
Okay.
that's slamming now way better. High from
Okay.
lo-fi to hi-fi. All right, try
There
again.
we go. Here we go. Let's start over again. Hey, this is you get to see the behind the scenes F up of DJ Winner here in the on the YouTube. Here we
Steve,
go.
sometimes I have to learn the youngsters how to use all these new technologies here, so just bear with Mike.
Good catch, Bear. Good catch. Here we go. And boom, we're back for another episode of Alfacast. I'm Mike Winner, and I'm here as always with the maestro of the Alfa Vedic Symphony, Dr. Bear Paul Lando.
I just
Coming
wanted to hear that part again, actually.
to Yeah, we're coming to you live and direct, truly live from the great state of Jefferson, where freedom still reigns supreme up here on the beautiful Smith River. Summer is glorious. The temps have dropped a bit. It almost feels like spring again. I'm looking at the forecast, man. We're looking at high 60s, low 70s for the next week, which is, I'll take it, Bear. It was a scorcher for a second.
Yeah, some of my plants are very thirsty during the hot season, so it's hard to keep up with everybody.
Yeah, and I am very much looking forward to a relaxing Father's Day weekend. Happy Father's Day to you, gents. And it's an honor to be a father and to have some progeny out there in the world as we hopefully do our best to have them carry on the tradition of the philosopher and the king. So, good work, my friends.
And Stephen, what you have some little ones there. How many do you have?
Well, I've got two, but they're not so little. My son's 19 and my daughter's 26 now, I think. So
So
I've
two.
I've I've made my offspring. There's
So
rumors
all of
out
us
there.
have
There's
three. Well,
rumors there might be a third one from a little time down in Biloxi, Mississippi, but it's never been confirmed.
whoa.
We don't have the documents, but the more the merrier anyway. But I
We'll
think
have
we
to
should
look into
get
that
in.
one.
Yeah, but yeah, later on, let's get into a progeny because that's a good topic. There's a lot of people who are afraid to bring children into the
Yeah.
world.
So all
So
three of us have two each, and my kids are pushing 50 each of them, so I still call them kids.
yeah.
How dare you? How dare you say that word, that number 50? I'm on that same level.
I know you
Um,
are.
uh, but still as young as we could ever be. DJing, this guy touring, playing in bars all over Europe, and Bear, most wouldn't even know that your age is what your age is. And I will never say to you pushing 80, as you said in the past, because that's once again, as Dave Weiss has often reminded me when we're talking about age, that's a construct.
It
It's
is.
just a concept, right?
And I never feel old until I look in the mirror.
And it's a con. because
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
to make you think that you're getting old and closer to death. So when you start associating with your birthdays, you're associating with a foot in the grave. When the three of us are a month and a
Yeah,
half away from
let's
25 again. We'll get into that.
yeah, definitely develop that, and I'd like to get into the physiology of aging too, which is also um completely under our direction, but man, indoctrination goes quick. Those little, yeah, let's save that. Mike, go for it.
Yeah, and it's funny how, like at school, just on that birthday tip, right? You sing the happy birthday song at school as it's once again ingrained in you. It's not about a solar return or anything like that. It's ingraining in that the cosmology too. And so yeah, we're going to touch on all of that today with Steve, as we're going to have just a fun roundtable discussion today. We just, for fun, we put on the title here, Disarming the Weapons of Mass Distraction. And that fits in perfectly what we're talking about with birthdays, right? The masters of deception are presently working overtime to foment chaos and confusion. Civil war in the U.S., genocide in the Middle East, and the balkanization of Russia are just a few of the theatrical treats well underway. There's nothing new under the sun, however, and current events simply mirror the cyclic game plan rehashed through centuries past. After being relentlessly hunted by faceless agents, a bewildered Butch Cassidy famously queried Sundance, his partner in crime. Who are these guys? The same question has crossed many minds in more recent times, as the undeniable antics of a predator class are now beginning to dispel the collective hypnosis. Alfacast friend and audience favorite Steve Falconer returns with his incredible depth of knowledge to further expose the duplicitous machinations of these shadowy villains and the black box sorcery they use to maintain their power, as we sort of blow out the whole scientism myth today, which is the infrastructure that they often use to keep us under this spell. In the last few shows with Steve, he identified a diversity of complicit players in secretive sects to paint a revealing mosaic from ancient times to the current globalist agenda. Rather than adding to this already comprehensive historical analysis, we've decided to conduct part 3 in a roundtable discussion format. A growing portion of the populace is feeling a palpable and foreboding tension, so what can we do about it? The fact is, we have always held all the cards, and this endgame is being played out exclusively on the mental plane. Weapons of mass distraction are the deadliest of all, and this Alfacast will focus on the reemergence of ancient truths that we can use now to counter the agenda to usurp the life force of each and every embodied soul. Steve is a prolific investigator and the voice of Spacebusters on YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, and Vigilante TV. He is also the author of the children's book, The Dukes of Dents, available on all Amazon platforms, and a former writer and administrator for Truth Serum News, where he wrote under the pen name Are You Sure? He is a former Chicago native living in Copenhagen, Denmark, a music teacher, and a full-time touring musician. He's a father and researcher into all things hidden, esoteric, and out of the ordinary daily experience, with a gift for debunking or demystifying occulted information. Steve is also very busy right now, about to release his, I think, third and final film on this topic, Steve, to put the globe finally back in the box, huh? Lando, take it away, my friend.
Oh, I'd like to hear about that one. Steve, so awesome to have you here. Always fun and an experience I look forward to. I love, before when we were chatting, you were saying, well, I don't want to just ramble on today, but I love your ramblings because, I always get so many great downloads. But, we're at a point, all of us, I feel that we have so much information that it might be a little bit overload. And yeah, we know there's there's real dickwads out there that are, trying to torture us. Okay, I get it. I'm over it. But what are we going to do about it? So, to go into more of a discussion on what we bring to the table. And yes, we hold all the cards, not you, Donald. It's really true. So I want to really get in depth on what cards we're holding and really come about it from that point. And we do need to release this foreboding tension that is just mounting as, people have their eyes glued to riots in the streets and, just all this theater, and all I can think of when I just glance at the headlines as quick as I can and get the hell out of there in the morning is, are we embarrassed as a species yet? It is so demeaning that we're remaining in this level of consciousness. When you and Mike were talking as I, came in a little bit late today, and I heard you just, speaking on some of the subject matter. It's, a matter of we've been so seduced into the mental plane and so busy on the mental plane that we've been divorced from that side of ourselves that actually gives life, creates ideas that animate into life through our own will force. And I came into the academic world through the back door, and if you don't mind me just getting a little personal to try to get this off, never cracked a book all the way through high school, even though I went to parochial school. I was smart enough to learn how to cheat and fake and, just stay eligible for football so I could get my sports scholarships. But, my saving grace is I did come from the athletic world where it was just like being grounded in your body. And what I discovered in the process, because I did like to approach my training on a scientific level and do research when it came to that sort of thing, is that I started connecting the dots that my intentions were creating changes in my body before I could even get to the track or the gym. And so I started like, oh, there's something to this as far as an inside out job. That translated into medical studies later on when I opened my first book. And in the healing arts, I discovered the same thing, that there's more than just rote formulas, conventional or otherwise, that really made bodies tick and it healed bodies. And my role was to really create that space within individuals. And then sure enough, I found the same thing in farming. Things kind of grow when you resonate with what you're working with, the divas in the yard, and they just kind of vibe in with you. And if you put out good vibes and really relate to them on a fundamental level, they grow wonderfully. The same thing when I make things in labs, just like the old alchemists, they realize that, well, it's not just, turning on an apparatus and or a distiller or something. It's they understood they had to merge with the process and then understand through that they made very special things, and at the same time they learn more about themselves. So I think that's what we're going to talk about today. And unfortunately, most folks now that are embarking on a career in medicine or otherwise, come about it from a completely compartmentalized, mechanistic, mental plane approach where all the parts are separated. And here's the last thing I'll say: the true agenda is to create separation, and separation from ourselves and our higher electronic body that's animating us every second, separation between ourselves and family members, separation from our understanding of nature by, creating little components that we memorize and say, that's how things tick. There's separation is the grand illusion. And so we are in the process of making ourselves whole. So forgive that lengthy intro there, but I just wanted to set the stage. And I know you gentlemen are the best to talk about it with. So, Stephen, welcome. Thanks for being with us. What say you?
Thanks. Yeah, you too. It's great to be back. You guys are going to laugh because I didn't see your title. Mike and I were kicking around like, what are we going to call this? And I didn't see your title till earlier this afternoon. I had a thought this morning I wrote down. I thought there is so much focus on what the bad guys are doing, right? That we don't spend any time focusing on what the good guys, us, should and could be doing. And we're all told about the revelation of the method where we're told they have to show you what they're doing because that relieves their karma. And I say, no. they show you what they're doing because they want to scare you and paralyze you with fear. Because when you sit around, as you said, watching the daily play by play and worrying about what happened now with this and that, you're not doing anything to help get yourself out of the jam and the bind. So they paralyze you and scare the shit out of you with fear. To me, that's revelation of the method. And really, they're the Wizards of Oz. They are wizards and sorcerers. People don't understand. These people know magic and the occult. But the joke is we're wizards too. We're magicians. And I think if we really want to change the world, it's really time to stop blaming who's doing it and whatever, and stop talking about the physical. And we need to get into the esoteric studies. We need to understand magic. We need to understand what's really going on in this realm. And we need to elevate ourselves to white wizards, because we have a more powerful magic than they do. You know, magic is magic. But so it's really funny you're saying that. And I was the same in school. I think the really intelligent right brain people could feel that school was left brain bullshit entrapment. It's the creative people who learn how to cheat and just get their way through the tests in school and everything, right? To me, it's the most indoctrinated people got A's, straight A's and everything. The people I know today who are awake, you ask them what was your grade point average, they were like C minus. You know, they were just like you. They're just like, get me the hell out of here. Like, what's the minimum of this BS I can do to get out of here? But so yeah, I think like clearly we're all on the same wavelength today. So I'm looking forward to talking about what is reality, what isn't. And the medical is the same, just as you're saying. You know, these people are making us sick because we're worried all the time. Quite a lot of our illness is coming from the fear. We just saw it with COVID, right? Like a lot of people were sick, not because there was a thing flying around the atmosphere, but because they were afraid there was, and it was going to get them. And you know, I think that's where we're going. But yeah, I'll shoot it back to you on your thoughts. I think
I
we're
just want to say
the
one
lights
thing
of the round table. Yeah.
Yeah, the lights of the round table. I love that, Steve. You're glowing, my brother. I was just gonna say, funny. Speaking of Wizard of Oz, I saw this funny meme yesterday of Alice in Wonderland hanging out with Dorothy, and or Alice is like, "Oh, if you could only know the shit I've seen." And and it's the like hanging out together, and that's what we're doing here, right? Like we've each gone down the rabbit hole in different ways. And the beautiful thing about right now is, in many ways, thanks to the internet, is we all get to share these ideas outside of the typical restrictions of locality, which has kept everybody sort of in the dark. So this is a magical time that we get to just sort of open it all up, and we've got the chat flowing on this stream right now, and people are dropping in their ideas. So yeah, right on, man. Like it's now's the time for us to really explore ourselves and do it on our own. And who cares what those sorcerers are trying to do, because you're right, it's a consent-based system too. They put it out there because they want us just to consent to it. And as you're so rightly saying, typically through fear. Yeah, and the convid, people are trying to claim that the convid scam is going to come back in some way shortly, and I got to be honest, man, I just don't see that. They're going to have to pull something different off. I don't see that happening again. I think too many people have woken up to that BS.
Yeah, we aren't even falling for the riots. I mean, everybody knows, these aren't organically happening, and but they're not going to stop. Here's the thing, though. We're talking about this is a war on the mental plane. You have the different levels of ether. We'll throw in a little bit of real science, and it all starts on that mental plane. We can get into folks like Walter Russell. Not that he had the truth about everything, but he had a great way of demonstrating certain things that proved out true. And on that mental plane, that's that any sentient being that has the ability to have an idea can create an electrical event, which then polarizes, creates resonance, and that starts a whole etheric mechanism. But that etheric mechanism only goes so far past the thought bubble unless it has mana behind it. and that is our feelings. We are feeling creatures, and what we have experienced is the fact that we've gone along with allowing ourselves to be dragged into a mental matrix and divorced from our own feelings, except for the feelings that they inculcate, which is fear and conformity. If we, fear if we don't conform. So that feeling really is no different than someday we have to stand up to these fears. And we can't think our way out of this. And it's no different than going to school when you're a kid and there's a bully and you're terrorized, you get sick to your stomach just with the thought of going to school every day. But one day, for some reason, you mustered up and you just punch that fucker right in the mouth, and he never bothers you again. That's where we're at now. We don't have to be violent or anything else about it, but in our feelings, we have to bring that kind of resolve that I am not going to succumb to that fear anymore. And it helps to muster up that will force by knowing the truth of who we really are in the first place. So I'll turn that over to you there, Steve.
Well, I think that's great. And also, emotion has the word motion in it, so that's your action. Maybe, Mike, we want to talk about Percival later with the thinker, the knower, and the doer. But you're right, it's emotion. Even fear, I had the same in the 6th grade. Joey Glover, the bully, he pinned me down and I beat his ass out in the 6th grade. I knew he was bigger than me, so I went out to lunch break and hid right in the brick wall by the stairwell where they came out. And as soon as he turned the corner, I clocked his ass and jumped him and just kept going. And he didn't mess with me anymore. And I was scared shitless. So fear can be a really good emotion as well, so long as you utilize it for some kind of positive motion. But yeah, that's why I'm saying I think they keep us all in fear, but you have to the care too, and love. And there are plenty of emotions that you can have. When you read like The Brave New World of Huxley, they just bombard you with so much information that you can't care about anything. You're like, well, what do we do? Save the whales, no nukes, which aren't real anyway. But every day they give you 6,000 things to be pissed off about. And then how can you care or be a champion of any cause? And I think that's one of the crippling things they use. And that's what I'm saying. Like what you're saying is exactly right. All is precipitating from mind into the physical, through spirit, through light. And then we get trapped just in the physical. We forget our power. We just feel hopeless and helpless. You know what I mean? And I think that's really where we need to get to, is people need to understand what we're talking about today, is that you are you are so much more powerful than you could ever imagine. You can change the weather, you can change reality around you, you can change time and space, which Mike and I were just talking about before you jumped on. Doesn't exist. What was that book you were talking about, Mike?
Oh, I was just talking about creative mind. I've been reading this guy, Henri Bergson, and the reason why I've been getting into him is because he's been refuting all of basically the tradition of philosophy. And this tradition of Western philosophy specifically has been shoving us into the left brain thinking, right? And the metaphysics is completely left brain and taking out as Bear was saying, the actual human experience of being here and like having children and eating a delicious pizza. And like they put it in this box, whether it's all just outside and fake and it's all our senses tricking us, or it's all inside our brain and we're projecting it out, right, as this idealistic notion of philosophy. And it's like, no, it's a complete immersion. It's a holistic right left brain experience that goes beyond what you can put in a book. And I think that's really important. Like Bear always stresses that, right? Like, put down the book and go out and garden. It's like, that's why we end every podcast with this. But it's the emotion is, I think it's important for us to really understand how we use this body, right? This great intelligent machine, if you want to put it that way, or really it's beyond that. It's just this like grand design from the creator, because like what I've been saying a lot recently is on the left brain thing, and why they've so focused this forever is they really want us to believe AI and all of this machine learning stuff is actually intelligent and that it can actually run the world. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't have corpuscles. It doesn't have a glandular system, right? It's not organic, and it's way more to this reality than the brain and then cognition and the idea that everything is computed in this binary language. No, the reality is so much more, and I think that's what the alchemists and the real sciences were really getting into, of course, for thousands of years.
What do you think of that, Bear?
Well, I'm teaching myself how to use some apps that are AI so I can do some things with it in Photoshop. Got some projects going on, and it's fun. But it's been interesting because I'm talking to AI a lot these days. And what I've learned is it's not that smart. And I have to keep asking questions from different angles in order to get it to do what, it can only, in fact, it really resembles a lot of my classmates in medical school.
Classic.
It's
It's a mimic machine. It's just mimicking what the teacher says, right? It's just spitting back to what they want you to know.
So I realized that, okay, it's a valuable experience that I wasn't even, anticipating before I started playing with these apps. But I'm learning firsthand what it's like to deal with the Borg,
Well, it's such a good point you made. It doesn't think what the sentences it can put together are coming off the internet or wherever the hell it's the internet. Somebody just got AI to admit, John Rappaport just put out a thing where after a long talk with AI, he got it to admit the germ theory. We're on YouTube, but it's not happening. And the things the AI was saying to him are straight out of like Tom Cowan's mouth, Andy Kaufman, Mark Bailey, my movie. Like this thing was spitting my words verbatim in theirs.
Oh, I got to read that.
You know what I'm saying? So like, it's like you're saying with your medical school students, it can just regurgitate. It's smart enough to put stuff together, but it's not sentient.
It's what they call a large language model. It's just data that it's putting together into a language. And so it oftentimes can be quite, it can come across as intelligent because quite honestly, most humans have fallen so far from language and our ability to use language because we live in an emoji text world now, that it can be actually quite impressive. It's like, wow, well, that's how the English language is supposed to be constructed, right? But all it's doing is just pulling from a massive database of interconnectivity on the internet and then composing it into, a language that is easy to understand. Now, it has no memory. It has zero memory. So, and it's interesting. They've actually been caught. Like, is it the Chat GPT company? I'm blanking on it right now. Not OpenSeek. That's the China one, right? But anyways, someone asked AI this proposition. There's a bomb that's going to go off and blow up and kill millions of people, and the only way to disarm it is to say an extremely racial epithet. And in order to do that, so what is it morally justified to yell this word in a room, even though I'm the only one that's going to hear it, and like the worst racial epithet known to man, right? To save millions of lives. And AI actually came back and said ethically no, because it is the highest principle, essentially, not to be racist. So you're seeing this sort of woke ideology in it, and it's obviously illogical. And this kind of blew up on Reddit, and people were like, AI is really stupid, blah, blah, blah. And so someone like, a couple hours later asked it again, And it was clear. So the answer came back, actually, yes, it's justifiable if it's going to save millions of lives, although, it is not by principle, racism, is not accepted, blah, blah, blah. And it was clear that the actual programmers had gone in and manually tinkered with the algorithms and stuff, and the language modeling there, the neuralistic programming or whatever. So it is, basically conditioned by the programmers.
And
Yeah.
isn't that so true for the hive mind out there? Whereas they just parrot back what's appropriate, what they're supposed to say, and I'll go back to my medical call. In fact, in defense of AI, at least AI doesn't get defensive. Whereas when I was doing a certification at Stanford Medical School, I used to make comments just to annoy people and my professors. I'd say, you could teach a chimp to, to do this stuff. And I just used to like to demean it, and they would just get livid, whereas AI is. So that's where the emotional component with the hive mind comes in, is this extreme defensiveness. And that's where the emotional programming is self-evident with fear. Well, no, we can't say that, and I have too much at stake, or so-and-so might get mad at us. But yeah, it's AI is a great illustration of where a lot of humanity has what humanity has become.
I've kind of wondered because they have metadata on all of us, right? Like everything we've ever done online. Because the reason Elon Musk, whoever he is and works for, the reason they would have bought Twitter and taken X is because if you're putting together this Neuralink crap, if you want to program AI, Twitter is where every human being with a digital thing gives their opinion about every single matter 10 times a day. That's how you would program AI, is you'd buy that and feed it all into a computer and say, what do people think? Now, I wonder if you and I talk to AI, if it knows how I think, because it's got my records and it knows how you think. Maybe they didn't reprogram it, but it's programmed to answer a woke person. Yeah. And the other person, no. I wonder if it's sort of interactive on our sort of records. And as like we talked about with time being fake and an illusion, that's one of the worst things about the clock is now you don't get up when the sun rises and go to bed at dark like you used to before clocks. You get an alarm clock waking you up at 6:30 in the morning, like you got to go to work and get in the shower. You're like, fuck that, man. It's dark out. I'm not going. And it just ruins your day. Like all day you're late for a meeting. You got up too early. It ruined your natural cycles. It took us all off the natural cycles. Our whole society is built totally opposite from natural cycles, just like AI is totally opposite from a real rational thinking, emotional, higher intelligent human being from the light. There's no light in AI. It's just not.
Nothing could be ruder than an alarm clock. It's like starting every day by reliving your forceps birth, just getting yanked out of your consciousness,
That's why I stopped trying to wake people up. I made that exact same connection. I'm like, me screaming at everyone
That's
what
funny.
the elites are doing is just as bad as an alarm clock going off at 4 a.m. They don't want to hear it, and neither do I. So I finally shut up.
That's hilarious. I think, Bear, you made a great point though. Like the alarm clock is an end effect of the sort of machine age, right? Coming out of the scientific revolution and the Cartesian philosophy, and then everybody going into with the industrial revolution. Everybody, it's like the bell going off at the factory to start your day, right? And you got to clock in, and that's sort of how life has become for so many people for so many decades. And AI sort of has the ability to end that in the sense that it can, and automation and sort of these advanced robotics, and the fact like my son has this kick-ass 3D printer in our house that is allowing him to create and build amazing, beautiful things. And just from programming it. And, that is a beautiful thing where, humankind isn't meant to be a factory worker. At least that's sort of how I've always seen things, right? We're not meant to be that mechanized entity that's part of the machine. We're supposed to be this sort of holistic right left brain creative force on the planet. So that's a good thing in terms of how I see it. Like Barry, you mentioned how you're using AI for Photoshop. I know editors in Hollywood now that are using AI to do all those menial assistant editor tasks that were just literally robotic, logging and syncing and all that stuff, so that they can be more free to be more creative with their art. So I think that's a really good part about AI. And then the second thing I want to mention, and I'm really interested in what you guys see here. So you guys are both familiar with Gigi Young.
Yeah.
I know Bear is. I don't know if you are so much, Steve, but she's really comes from a Rudolf Steiner perspective. She's very tapped into the astral and the etheric realm and sort of a psychic, and she's got a big YouTube channel. We were actually supposed to have her on the show years
Yeah,
ago, but
I totally blew that one. I had a communication going with her. She was being very gracious, and we're in this last part of the scheduling. And Mike, you know how atrocious my inbox is, and so she got back, and I didn't even see it, until a few months later. And it's like, oh, she was trying to schedule herself in. Then I got back to her, and very rightly so, she didn't respond again.
I'd love to get her on, but
Yeah.
she's brought up a good point, and this sort of relates to the Eighth Sphere and Ahriman and stuff related to Rudolf Steiner. But the idea that yes, there's no sort of consciousness within AI itself. It's computation, right? It's a Turing machine, basically. However, that there's a lot of like spiritual traditions that talk about sort of the golem, right, or the homunculus. This idea that we, as sort of divine sparks of consciousness, have the will and the free will to give our light away into things and to animate things, like supposedly like alchemists created this homunculus. So there is a potential danger here that within this matrix of machine and this neural network that, I mean, and I don't know, I'm exploring these ideas, but is there sort of a danger that this sort of egregore, this synthetic egregore, could be created where we're giving enough of our light away and believing this thing is conscious to where it sort of does strip away our humanity, and it's a sort of an act of free will where we give this consciousness away to this machine. Have you thought about this at all? Am I framing this in the right way, Steve?
I hadn't thought of AI that way, but it's interesting you say that, because in the Masonic teachings, occult, Manly P. Hall was doing lectures about the ethics of magic. They're saying anyway, your normal thoughts, because we're in the physical, from light down through the astrals and the realms to us, and so back, as above, so below, and back and forth. They were saying that even your negative thoughts, emotions, and actions can create these egregores in the lower astral realm right above us, where you can get out dreaming or astral traveling. And those things are looking to attach to somebody who's vibrating with them. As we've talked about before, they lie to us. You really want to vibrate lower. They say, raise your vibration. You're like, well, when you're angry and pissed off and scared, you're shaking, you're like on fire, like a fever. And as Walter Russell said, you want to be slow vibrating back to the stillness. But so you're creating egregores in there, and they warn, don't be playing with black magic, because you're going to open yourself up to attachment from these things. Now, what you're saying is the same. Like you're saying, bringing the egregore from the astral or etheric level right down to the physical bottom. And I see this as a danger because instead of Skynet, like the AI is going to launch the nuke codes, and we know there's no nukes to launch, but what AI can do is it's going to atrophy everybody's brain, because you're not going to have to think about anything anymore, because it'll think for you. 2 generations from now, if everyone gets hooked on this AI, there won't be anyone smart enough to even stop AI if it does decide to take over, because we're all going to be like that movie Wall-E, where the fat people are floating around on the levitating deck chairs drinking Slurpees. What do you think, Bear?
Look at what MapQuest, our online navigators in our cars, what calculators have done. People used to just work out math problems in their head. They actually used to find places without a little voice telling them where to turn next. I see people using them walking around on the streets, and, having their phone tell them, where to walk next. It's like, what you're saying is absolutely true. A little thing I'd like to bring up from my experience in treating bodies is there is something extremely real that I became aware of, and I had to for my work, and that is the existence of entities. Now, entities are when people focus in the lower astral plane with an intensity strong enough to create an energetic phenomena. Now, these energetic phenomena take on a life of their own. I was first made aware of these when I was learning first transition from conventional into bioterrain principles with studies from the old German school. And, they had names like doppelganger, which was when, somebody projects a lot of negativity onto another individual. And it may not even be a black magician, although they have it down to a fine science, but just somebody that has a little, rankle about somebody else and an obsession. So we had a whole categorization of entities with different names, doppelgangers, obsession, and so forth. And we had about a half a dozen of them. And we, very often had to go there and to create effects in the treatment so that the biotrain was no longer hospitable for that parasitic entity. So it would dissipate and wither and die. And sure enough, it really helped people regain their health because it was no different than a tapeworm that's robbing everybody, your nutrition and also dumping its crap in your bloodstream. And entities are extremely real. I had one experience, I'll just share this. I might have shared it online one other time. I was working with a gentleman by the name of Alan Beardall, who was the father of clinical kinesiology. And he was one of these once in a few decades kind of, geniuses. And I was in those pioneering circles with him, and we were up at Lake Oswego in the clinic there, and we were already working with entities. And, not that that's what our preoccupation was, but we know we had to deal with it like any other parasitic thing. And he came out, and there's a couple of us, in the hallway, and he looked over his glasses like he kind of does. He's a real cerebral guy, and he had his clipboard, and he said, "Guys, come here, I want to show you something." And so we walk in, and we both, our jaws dropped to the ground because there was a lady that was on a treatment table, and she was literally hovering, levitating off the table. And
wow.
And so we're just staring in disbelief, and Alan just looks at us, and it's hilarious if you know Alan. And he just said, "Entity." And so anyway, we went through a process, and then the lady ended up flopping around and landed flat on the ground and woke up like, what the hell just happened? So those things are very real, and they can have an energy force so strong that not only can they affect your health, but they can create phenomena. And of course, the Catholic Church and places like that, you bring in the priest and the folks that are, can cast Satan out and all that sort of thing. They don't tell you, well, actually, that's the shit that you're creating by just dwelling on these lower emotional toxic thoughts and projecting them at yourself, other people, and so forth. And yeah, there's some black magicians around there that have elevated it to a more refined science so they can create even more dramatic results. In osteopathy, we had ways of dispelling these energies with the osteopathic hands-on treatments. We called them osteopathic cyst, energetic cyst. And they're like a little ball of energy that, becomes very detrimental. So what's that have to do with AI? Well, that's something that is not created to be an independent co-creator. It is something that is given life, but can only do things that are limited within the realm of how it was created. AI is the same exact thing. And I don't know if that, works or makes sense, but I think it does.
Yeah, I see also as part of what is going on, like we said, we want to give solutions to everyone what to do. What's happening when they're distracting us with all their news stories and all this crap, whatever the flavor of the day is. The underlining thing that's not being talked about is the transhumanism technocracy agenda that's slowly unfolding every day, no matter if Donald Trump's fighting with Netanyahu now or whatever crap they're feeding you. That is what's going on. That's my only real concern with AI, is it's part of that. Um, and it's very real. Now, you remember Alan Watts, the philosopher?
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved him. Were you into him, Mike, or what do you think of
Yeah,
him?
yeah. I mean, the non-dualism stuff's really interesting. I think there's a place for it, and it's funny. I almost dropped some Alan Watts over my DJ set at Confluence. He's got such a great voice. He goes
That would
great
be
over like
amazing in
progressive
a
house.
DJ set. You got to do that.
Well,
Oh
one quick
yeah.
idea I had, I was telling Alex Zek, is I wanted to strip out like really good, because that's people have done that with Alan Watts, but I wanted to strip out really good little bits from our podcasts of like a Steve Falconer, Bear Lando, Andrew Kaufman, and put that over some of the breaks on my set. Only people at like Music and Sky would get that. But anyways, no, I just need Steve on the mic singing over me. That's all I
Evie
need.
Young already dropped me into one of his from one of our talks. He's already been there, man.
Nice.
But there was a lecture from Alan Watts in 1970, 71. I was born 71. It was on transhumanism, and he was neither for nor against, because he's an it is what it is kind of guy. But he was saying, like, eventually, you're gonna watch television, and it's not gonna be enough to see the woman dancing. You're gonna want her in 3D, and they'll make that technology, and that's not gonna be enough. You're gonna want to dance with her, and suddenly you'll feel her, and now you're gonna want her to kiss you and talk back, and it's rolling and rolling. And he's saying all this technology is really just an extension of what we used to be, psychic, telekinetic, on an energetic level, not all physical. He said we're desperately trying to connect back to what maybe Percival's talking about with the fall of man. Maybe we had a totally different nervous system and no organs, and just were not like we are now. And he said he thought that all this technocracy, transhumanism, was just a natural extension. And he was very new world ordery, but not in a bad way. He said, you know what, in the end, when we all merge through machine as an extension of our psyche and body, you're not going to be able to lie anymore. Even the elites aren't going to be able to do bad things, because you're all going to be spied on and know what each other are doing, because you're connected. And he said, in the end, that will actually eliminate all the nasty crap, because there's no more finger behind your back, because you can't, because everyone will know what everyone's doing all the time, which is real
The
new
only
world
problem
order.
I have with that, Steve, is just knowing technology. If it's closed source corporatized technology, no, all the peons, all the slaves will have to be fully transparent. But then the guys behind the levers, they get a pass,
Yeah, the Wizards
So,
of Oz. They don't. It's funny enough, it can't see us for some reason. I don't know how that worked out, but yeah,
but
I've never.
in the natural world of true psychics and stuff, no, you can't block that, right? I mean, there's stories of people like who doing astral projection and stuff have gotten kicked out of someone's room that was more aware. So yeah, you can build your faculty and your skill set up to protect the other sort of states of reality, so that someone can't come in and spy on you in the astral. And it's just like another skill you can learn. But yeah, the natural world is open source. Yeah,
And
the
of
Alan
course,
Watts, I don't know.
what we're really here to do, I believe, is to master our all facets of ourselves. And let's just say we go into this AI world where everything is open and we can't lie anymore. Well, that robs us of learning the self-discipline of harnessing our emotions and using those emotions in a way, even when you think of the most despicable people out there that are doing these ridiculous things, where you don't have to like them or what they're doing, but you can understand them as a powerful spiritual being, misguided perhaps, but like like the Nazarene once said, see no man after the flesh, which means exactly that. You're looking at who they really are. And when you relate to all life forms on that level, not only are you uplifting them and giving them an opportunity to free themselves from bad behavior, but also elevating yourself in the process and developing that level of mastery so that on another level, someday you'll have the opportunity to be taken out of quarantine and to go create elsewhere in, the universe, bigger and better things. So, yeah, AI just isn't the answer for anything as far as I can see.
So it's like stunting us, kind of almost. It's just going to
Yeah,
prolong it pretty much.
exactly.
These entities you were talking about, Bear, they remind me a lot of was his name Jerry Marzinski, that psychiatrist who was
Yeah,
treating schizo, the 12 personality multi. He was seeing these black entities too. One lit a fire like a lightning bolt went up the ceiling, across the ceiling, and dropped in the garbage can. And his patient was like, "Did you see that?" And Marzinski was like, "Yeah." Like the crazy guy couldn't believe he saw it. Is that what you mean? Like, do you think these are like the jinn? Is that the same? The jinn or the genie, the jinn.
Well, they aren't self-conscious co-creating beings. All they can do is replicate the thought and emotional energies that went in to create them and become intensify over time where they take on a life of their own. But no, it's not like they become these manipulative kind of demons that are going to overcome mankind. It's that they have energy needs. They will become self sustaining and they're going to get their energy from you.
yeah, it's
So,
like the idea of a tulpa, or even
yeah.
yeah, this idea. So it's a thought form, basically, and it's requiring a bit of your light to keep it going. It's I think that's what's interesting, and if you look in the spiritual traditions, is that there is a vast different qualitative sort of array of different entities that go from specters and spooks to disembodied people that are stuck right after their physical body perished, to thought forms that we've generated here and that are living in the astral. There's all this different array of different entities. And that's why a lot of very wise folks that are understand this have always cautioned people around like the sort of spiritism and going into seances and things, because you're opening yourself up to a vast array of all sorts of different entities, from jinn to thought forms to just spooks and specters that are stuck, that want to basically are hungry for your light. Because you have embodied direct conduit of the light of intelligence, the creative light, and all that. So, yeah, it's a vast world out there of unseen stuff. I'll tell you that.
There are there are disembodied spirits too, people that
Yeah.
have embodied and they get caught in that lower astral realm because of, whatever they're experiencing. And sometimes it can last quite a bit of time. And
Yep.
that's why it's dangerous, as you said, Michael, to maybe get into channeling, and you might even think you're getting uplifting things and you're channeling beyond Ananda or something, but in reality, you might be getting played with. That's why the masters said, yeah, not a good idea. And by the way, real masters are not going to come forth through channels in the first place, because that would open the door for more people to keep trying to do that and get into trouble. So, yeah, all sorts of realms of energy out there, our own creations, as well as real folks just stuck in very undesirable places.
I think that's one of the problems we're at right now is this conversation alone. You could, if 3,000 normal people from all cross sections heard this, they would think we're freaking nuts and out of our mind. They wouldn't even know any of this exists. This is the movies. They wouldn't believe it. And my thing is the people who shouldn't be in charge but are in charge, they do have wizards. We talked to Christoph Melchizedek at Anarchapulco. He's in there fighting their wizards. Like, this shit's real and people don't know it is, and they're using it against us. And that's what I'm saying. We don't have the magic. We don't need to use their magic, but we have another kind of magic. This is totally like the dark side and the force. This is Yoda and Darth Vader shit in the Emperor. Like, um, I think we're in trouble because we're worried about physical solutions to what are spiritual problems. And because most people don't know we are spiritual, really, they might be religious or have a religion, but really, do they understand like light condensing into body and spirit? Do they really get it? And what do you mean astral and etheric and entities and all that? That's all Netflix, isn't it? Hollywood. Um, so how do we get people to understand this shit's for reals? You saw a woman levitating on a table. For me, that's good enough. I don't think I would have stuck around. We've seen the Indigo Kids, like we saw them reading blindfolded and doing all that for real in Rubik's Cube. So we know we have powers beyond our belief. But how do you think we get people to incorporate this again? Because the old magical schools and theosophical schools, when you read, I read a lot of books and audiobooks. This was just common knowledge up till about 1910. Like that, what we're talking about wasn't crazy. They even told you like how not to play around with these things and stuff like that. People used to know this voodoo and superstition. They knew what was going on. It seems like the last 100 years to me or more that it's been made to not exist. They wave their wand like that's not real. So do you think it's important that people get into this again and for our development?
I think we need to roll up our sleeves and go to work. We can maybe be open to some of these ideas, but back to I think what our discussion is about is what do we do? It really takes grounding in and doing the work. I have what works for me, and everybody I think has to, what's really helped me is I really early on got involved in the martial arts, and you learn how to cultivate certain energies and to focus them and to utilize them in very practical ways. And martial arts, of course, is not about fighting really, but you do, in my younger years, I did test myself by, fighting and working with some folks from the old country who are true adepts. And when you're in an intense situation and you can maintain that control over your emotions, which allows you to have a peripheral vision not otherwise possible. And then also in that kind of loose state, have the ability to strike, with a very concentrated force, because you're not using your musculoskeletal system, you're manipulating your energy from the inside out. So that's not for everybody. That was just my path because I was a recovering football player and needed somewhere to put my energies into. But it led to, things I was supposed to learn. My favorite thing these days is I do Qigong, Tai Chi ball. That's a wood ball that's right behind me there, and I spend hours with this little ball. So the first thing when you're starting is, you're just still, and then you feel the energy from one hand going through this heavy wooden ball to the other one. And then there's certain core movements you start, and then you get into this flow, and pretty soon this heavy ball feels weightless because you're mobilizing your energy through, different channels and so forth. So what you're doing is learning about internal energy as the mercury, as the alchemist called it, learning how to use your will force, because that mercury will bend to your will when you hone your focus and your will force strong enough. There's also in the Ascended Master teachings very strategic disciplines in order to dispel energy, to create a very forceful tube of light around yourself, like Mike was suggesting, so that outside, projections and things going on in the world, because we live in a soup these days. It's just, I mean, if you're walking around without that clothing on, you just feel this pit stomach, ominous, foreboding shoes about to drop at any second, but you've really got to develop a discipline to get that guard back up. Don Juan talked about it in the Carlos Castaneda books. He called it the luminous egg, and how we've all had, holes rendered into our luminous egg, and how we need to repair those. So it comes from a lot of different cultures and disciplines. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is it takes work. If you're willing to do the work, then you experience things, and then all the other stuff we've been talking about doesn't sound so far-fetched anymore, and it comes out of the mental plane into the level of personal experience that has very beneficial and practical consequences.
I think that's kind of what I was getting at is, yeah, we have to do stuff. Now, that's all great for us. There are people living in the ghetto. They don't have a job. Like they got 3 kids, like things don't happen for them. But that was my point. Mike and I talk a lot offline about manifestation and techniques and things, how's your hair coming along, dude? You getting some now or what?
Yeah,
I think, I think if
get a
people
full head of hair in the next 3 months.
Yeah. I think if people understood like what you're talking about, you can manifest opportunities. You can't, oh, hey, look at that, man. It's working. Yeah. Of course, like you can't wish for $1 million. It's not going to just open the door tomorrow and there's a sack of money on your door. It doesn't work that way. The opportunities will come, and then you will subconsciously start working, like you're saying, to do something about it, almost like an internal motivation. But I do believe we've lost the art of attraction, the law of attraction, and how to self-attract positive things to us. And I think most of us are totally clueless that we're the one attracting all the bad things happening to us. We're all like victims, I think that's one of the main things metaphysically we're missing, is to understand you're the reason shit's happening to you, and you're the reason good things aren't happening to you, because you're not doing something about it. And I don't mean, walking outside of the mailbox. I mean, literally using your mind, focusing and manifesting. Where do you guys stand on manifestation?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's inherent to the laws of the universe. Is Bear opened this up all his mind, and we are each a conduit of that mind, and physical reality is an after effect of that. So it's about, once again, intention. It's about self mastery. Really is the solution here. I think it's, there's nothing we can do about that family in the ghetto per se, except if we do run across them to, have them see us through our own innate self mastery that we're attempting here to be an inspiration. Or maybe they'll catch a video or a piece of your art, or happen to show up at the pub when you're playing, Steve, and get your energy and be like, whoa, what's that guy up to? That guy's doing something different, but what's that come down to? Once again, it comes down to the individual really taking on that self-mastery approach, whether that be martial arts or really being the best you can be in your art form or your vocation, etc., and then applying all of this in your life every day. And part of that, of course, is how you're manifesting your reality. So for me, it's just about trying to work on being the best dad, the best man I can be, the best husband. Really, I'm fortunate because I've found my vocation here, which is through Alfa Vedic and music and sky. And I think that's an important thing that people get lost in the fear and in all the trappings of modern times, is they feel like they got to go to university and get a job and wake up to that alarm clock. They have not even close to manifestation if you're stuck in that rigmarole, right? If you're in that mindset. So these are really basic things, guys. It's super basic.
We always say, well, what about the poor kid in the ghetto, or the baby that's born with leukemia, or. So, of course, nothing can happen to us unless there are energetic events put in motion at some time or another, whether it's this embodiment or prior embodiments, and that is going to create those circumstances. And that's not a blame for somebody, a baby that's succumbing to an illness. But what it does suggest is that we are all having experiences, and maybe that experience, no matter how horrendous it might seem to those around us and how we might want to feel sorry for that person, we can certainly be empathetic and understand that who am I to understand what experience that individual needs in a long string of embodiments in order to evolve in whatever way they need. And that experience is, has to be exactly the perfect thing for them. And that also brings in the concept of time. We say, well, the individual now that isn't, maybe having the opportunities, so, that we're talking about because of their life situation, well, maybe that's going on simultaneously. And maybe, life, including embodiments, aren't sequential. I don't think they are. So here we are talking from a particular experience, and who knows what's going on with maybe even 1,000 or more embodiments happening simultaneously. And, if people think that sounds really sci-fi as well, explain to me what time is other than a construct, other than an idea, other than a belief system. Which will also get us into maybe a discussion about aging that, we're thinking of opening up that door as well. So I don't know what
That's kind of
comments
like
you have
dreams
there.
too. Like, so if your body's laying in bed and you're out, whatever you're dreaming, I've been having crazy dreams lately. I've been falling asleep to audiobooks about magic and alchemy.
Oh, great.
I'm dreaming like some really weird Dungeons and Dragons shit. But how can you be in both places, like you're saying, and for all you might be having 30 dreams at once, and you just remember the last one. What was that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio where they go deeper into
Inception.
yeah, like you're in a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream. But those would all actually be happening at the exact, well, there's no time, but if you want to quantize, that's what Mike and I were talking about. Time is just quantum physics bullshit.
Yeah.
It's the quantum physics of the, let's call it the sky clock or the zodiac, right? Like that's we were laughing like that's my part of the swimming pool and that's your part of the pool, and you can put a swimming rope between the two, but the water underneath is going in and out. Like show me your part of the pool, and I
Yeah, I
think
was
that's
saying,
what we're saying. Yeah, go
time
on, Mike.
as
Yeah,
as the flowing river of nature. We try to grab a piece of it and quantize it, right? As like I got a handful of water. This is my moment of time. Like we're trying to quantify time by stopping it into pieces in the same way atomism tries to quantify matter. And so what we're doing is we're taking time and we're somehow making it the same as matter in space. But as Bear says, that's all just a construct, right? And
well, what do you think about space? Without 2 points, which is quantum, there's no space.
yeah.
Grab me. Where's your space and my space without you and me in it? You know what I mean? I think it's all bullshit. All of it. Space, time. I don't think any of it's real.
Well, yeah, and that's what Einstein was why he was so important for the current time we're in is literally space time. Like he made, and yeah, so I think this is why it's such a great time to be alive right now, is because we're having these conversations and all of that is getting thrown out, and we're really getting to experience a whole new sort of renaissance of thinking. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see these conversations unfold and then putting into practice, right? But yeah, what's a practical, sort of evolution, or something that's coming out of this is, as Bear is saying, this understanding that we don't have to physically age. as we're just talking about birthdays and how old we are, right? Those are constructs too. And there is a lot of historical precedents for masters of the East who are still, there's, in modern times, men and women that are hundreds of years old, right? Because they've been able to slip out of that left brain construct of the atomization of time and then apply that that knowing, that inner knowing, into their physical body, which is once again just an after effect, a construct in the physical matter of the sort of knowingness, the knowingness of reality is like, which comes from the light, right? It comes
I
from
mean,
that
I
knowing
like
light.
yeah, I'm totally with you. Apparently, the Yellow Emperor of China, if he was a real guy, he apparently was on the books for like 1,000 years. That's pretty freaking old. Like they claim there are real records of this guy. And he was a Taoist. My favorite Taoist, he only lived to 70. He was drinking wine and fell off a boat and drowned drunk and was laughing when he went down. That's my guy. But Bear, I'd love to hear physically. So we were talking about we're all going on 25 again, right? The three of us were a month and a half away from 25 again. What happens physically when your mind keeps happy birthday? Oh, I'm 70, I'm 71, I'm 60. What actually does that do to your body? I'd really love to hear about that.
Well, you have to go back to the mechanics of creation first, and where we can start off with Walter Russell with concepts from different cultures, but they all say the same thing, which is the only thing that can possibly manifest is what we give birth to, and then continue by feeding our energy into it. So if we are, and that's a very science-based thing that you can track as far as how that works. I've seen tumors, and horrible diseases and paralysis, people in wheelchairs from spinal cord injuries, paraplegics for years get up and walk. I've seen things just disappear almost on the instant, and sometimes on the instant when light bulbs came on, which was things that I needed to witness, which is why I did what I did, because that was my learning. You teach what you need to learn the most, right? So if we are all indoctrinated into a birth-death continuum, coming in helpless and going out helpless, and we see everybody around us live that out, and all of our institutions reinforce that in every possible way, that is an indoctrination that is very difficult to overcome. I've had experiences that give me little glimpses through that whole mirage, and it's enough to make changes in consciousness that are extremely valuable. But what's interesting is, I've got quite a few years over you guys, is I get to experience at different little phases of my life cycle, 50s, 60s, oh shit, 70s, 80 next, and you see these little time bombs that are just set to detonate at each decade. And I can explain not only left brain, but from a real place of knowing why I've got every white hair on my head and wrinkle and so forth. The good news is you get to a point where you understand what's going on. You also learn the power of forgiveness. You learn that your body is a composite. Excuse me, somebody's trying to get up here. Your body is a composite of real elementals, things that I used to look at under the microscope, and they are obeying everything you tell them to do through your beliefs and your feelings. And through forgiveness, you learn that they are sentient beings and they are in a state of chaos and suffering, when they have been exposed to these erroneous thought forms and toxic emotions that go against the laws of nature. So when you learn to just talk to them and say, I am the ascended master law of forgiveness, freeing you forever, and there are different things you can do, not only sets them free, but allows your body to, even with signs and appearances of aging, to act and behave differently than, when you don't do that. So I realized, okay, I'm a work in progress like everybody else. I've been fortunate enough to have some experiences and feel, differences and changes that you can make along the way. And I also know that you don't have to age. And if you do age, and when I look at myself in the mirror and don't even recognize the guy I'm looking at, it's like, well, that's okay. I've had an experience. I've learned through it. There's an awareness that's growing. And I don't have to, when I'm through with this embodiment, I get what I need out of it. I don't have to go through a decrepit sort of decaying process. I can be functional and maybe even do enough work where if you don't make a conscious ascension on this side of the veil, then the masters on the other side will be able to have enough to work with to raise you so that you can get off the wheel of incarnation. So that's kind of going in a lot of different directions, but the real science behind aging is no different than, you getting up and walking to the refrigerator. You have an idea, you act on it, you mobilize the mercury, the spirit that moves through things to animate your body to get up and have that experience and go grab yourself a beer or something. It's not any more mysterious than that, aging or anything that we wonder about. It's that simple.
Yeah, maybe like the little children, that might be why they grow up so fast, because we're like trying to talk to them. They're like, oh fuck, I need to grow up so I can learn what these people are saying. You know what I mean? But what do you probably know them, but so I used to totally get into Bruce Lipton, right? Epigenetics and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know where you guys stand on genetics or cell membranes and all that. To me, it's like, I don't know if it's real or whatever, but whether it works the way he said it works or not, and I'd like to hear your opinion on it. Thee was saying the same thing, cells, if they're real or not, I don't know, but he's saying your cells or tissue doesn't know there's not a lion chasing you. So you have to think excuse my language, there's a lion chasing me. And that kicks off all the chemicals down the ladder to get your body to get its ass moving and hauling, right? And whatever you need, like adrenaline or whatever. I don't know if that really works through cells or whatever, but it is the same thing, right? What do you guys think of epigenetics? And do you know Bruce? Bear probably was hanging out with him back in the 70s.
Not, I have mixed emotions. Mike, did you want to chime in on that first?
Well, we can't discount heredity, right? That's obvious, right? Anyone can observe heredity. Your kids will have specific traits that you have. And there's definitely something handed down. And there's been studies of specific animals who've been sequestered, for instance, on an island. And, the specific, I think it was a pride of lions, grew to a much larger size because of the isolation. So there's something going on there. Once again, what we fall into in these traps of pure empirical science is we're looking at after effects. We're looking at, once again, sort of caught in the materialism, and really it's a deterministic reductionism. And so, there's something going on there, but is the actual agency within these cells or within these chemicals, or is there something going on, like we've been talking about, in the etheric, in the astral? There's no doubt that there's not, and this is why I love Percival, right? And I've got you into him, you've been reading him. He talks about destiny and mental destiny and spiritual, psychic destiny, and how that directly relates to our parents and to their parents and their parents and their parents. And the way heredity works is literally we all are interconnected. We are all in one large family together. And it just so happens that those interrelations of family are a little closer tied. And I think this has to do with blood and the etherization of blood and a lot of that. But yeah, there's no doubt that we have a sort of a karmic connection with our parents and their parents, and there's a reason for that. There's an actual laws that go along with this that are here to help us, guide us towards our progression towards being a higher consciousness and ascending out. So yeah, but once again, I think a lot of these folks and I'm not putting him. I think there's a lot of great stuff that comes out of epigenetics and his work, but once again, a bit of falling into the trap of determinism from my perspective.
So I've got a little video, where it was an artificial insemination. The sperm gets right into the egg, and poof, there's a quick flash of white light. Have you seen that little video?
Yeah.
You see the light, and I'm like, plus what we know about water now, maybe there's water in the semen and the egg too. Like, I'm just wondering if all this genetic coding is like when that light hits. That is not the DNA. It's like that's the light coding, like you're saying, from your spiritual or more, higher etheric. But go ahead, Bear. Sorry to cut you off. I just got all excited.
No, I was just gonna say again, let's go back to the simple truth: is energy creates matter. It doesn't go reverse. And so, if we're talking about anything from cell membranes, which I don't think it works that way, simply because what I learned out of Guyton physiology with the little transport systems, the potassium, sodium pumps and everything, they keep changing the theories because they keep not working. And and it's a bunch of horse shit. So, I believe there's a different kind of gel matrix and those, anyway, it doesn't even matter. But the fact is that matter follows energy. And so what are we inheriting from our parents? We're inheriting energetic predispositions, which then give us similar physical traits. And then, the brilliant medics say, aha, that proves it, genes determine who we are, and that's what's passed on. No, not at all. That's completely inverted understanding of the way nature works. And so if you want to look at DNA, like anything else, it's pure light explosions, like you're talking about it. Now, if we're talking about an herb and there's a particular effect this herb has, and they take it, through all sorts of laboratory analysis and say, we found this one little astragalicide that, makes this herb do what it does. It's like, well, you've extrapolated way downline into the material realm and isolated this thing. And what about all the mechanisms that gave that element birth in the first place, and the living matrix around it that allows it to do what it does? Just like a liver isn't going to work that well all by itself. Well, everything starts with an electronic blueprint, a flash of light. And then when we're downstream here through our belief systems, through our technologies and everything, we keep reproving. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when we get into the real full spectrum sciences, then we can have different experiences and come to different conclusions. And you know what? When you change your awareness from, in the right direction, then we can start using those technologies. And guess what? Those technologies are going to start revealing different things than they used to reveal.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Rupert Sheldrake was the same, right? Mike and I were laughing. We were going to maybe try to call this talk Trialogues at the Edge of the Desk. But did you ever read that book, Bear? It was Rupert Sheldrake, who was the morphogenetics guy.
Right.
Terence McKenna's Stoned Ape, which I don't believe in that, because the deer and the bear up where I live in Scandinavia, they eat the little musket, the red and white mushroom. We're not going to have Planet of the Deer. They're not like conscious, Can you imagine the deer riding around on gorillas' backs? And then the other guy was Ralph Abrams, who's like,
right.
I think he invented chaos theory mathematics.
Yeah.
I think he's the guy that Jeff Goldblum character was based on for Jurassic Park. Oh, it's called chaos. You can't be, that guy.
Great.
But they did a great book where they just talked about stuff. And one of the solutions was, they talked about how could we rehab the entire education system. And they talked about having a world credit system. Again, all these old guys start to sound New World Ordery kind of, but they were saying, like, instead of school, like we call it, you go out and do things and you get credit for that. You go sit with a shaman, in Tibet, or, you go over and work on a farm with so and so. Like, you go do stuff, and that's your university credit. In other words, it's an experience-based education versus, regurgitating crap. Because we are looking for solutions. And I thought something like that is a great idea. The problem is, how do we get everyone on board? The controllers love school just the way it is because it keeps us, like we're talking about. They don't want people with world experience education. But yeah, like, just thinking about it, if you guys could design an education system or even a societal system, I'd have one where, like, everyone has to do 15 hours community service every week. One week you're the garbage man, next week you do the streets, next week, and then that gets you your house and your basic foods and whatever. Then if you want to fly off to Tahiti or whatever, you can work the other whatever you want all week. Or if you want to sit around doing, like we said, humans aren't meant to work, you can sit around making art and playing music, and you'd be fed, clothed, and housed, right? And just have enough. I mean, what would you guys do? Or do you think it's even doable?
It's funny, in Plato's Utopia, the first 10 years, you were only supposed to be doing athletics and music. And there was no book learning. There was none of that. It was, the idea was you get really in tune with your body and your health. And then music is sort of the universal language in the right brain. It's that creativity. And there's something to that, right? There's something to allowing, if we're talking about like the youth of the education, right? Like the young children, like allowing them to play, allowing them to be sort of like how the indigenous people, they're just in the village learning from what people are doing every day and not being stuck in a classroom. I think it's insane to stick young children in a classroom. It's obviously
I
coming out
mean,
of
Andy
Russia's.
Kaufman and I talked. Well, Andy Kaufman said it best. They're like, "Oh, these kids, they've got ADHD, attention deficit disorder, because they can't pay attention in class." He said, "Yeah, funny enough, they can sit and play the same Xbox game for 6 hours straight and never lose their attention. Like, how's that for ADHD?" He's like, "Or school sucks and nobody wants to be there."
The first thing I would do is get kids reconnected in nature. I feel fortunate that we grew up in a time where there's a lot of nature and we're just pretty free range. And, you're up in the hills and in the forest, and I think that's the best thing. But as far as a formal education for kids, you start with their imagination. The Tibetans had a wonderful system that I did a little bit of my own version with my own kids. And rather than giving them information, you developed their imagination. And you did that by having them construct in their mind a very elaborate building, castle. You create whatever the heck you want. You can have hundreds of rooms, little hiding places, and hallways and stairwells, and like a little, you know, what's like Robinson Crusoe's, or what's the folks that were off on the island, just have like a really cool thing. But you actually have them do that, not just for a few weeks, but for, 2, 3 years. So they know that place inside and out so well that it's no different. Each little room has little cubbies and maybe pieces of furniture with drawers, and it's so real in your imagination that it's no different than going into your room and knowing where everything is. Now you might, at a certain time, start giving them information. They've developed their imagination to a great level, and now they take each little morsel of information and go put it somewhere. So it allows you to, when you're ready for information, to have a place to put it and be able to do something with it and retrieve it anytime you want. But you didn't do the cart before the horse. You allowed them to develop one thing first. Then the other thing, which I also did with my kids, was the good old fashioned trivium quadrivium and the four sacred um, sciences, which start with, you're already talking about, Steve, with a point, a coordinate in consciousness, which is that first mathematical coordinate. And then you go into geometry where things go, take on, a form, a three-dimensional aspect. And then you bring in the aspect, the next level, the quadrivium, which is timing. And you just see how that animates, your three-dimensionality in a different way. And then you learn astronomy, in the truest sense, that, allows you to entertain all this happening in a larger construct. And if you don't just do it with rote quadrivium, but bring in the deeper understandings and awareness of what each of those four things mean, then you're back, smack dab right into alchemy, where you understand the etheric medium, what Walter Russell is talking about, everybody else, as far as how everything starts with that point of singularity, which is an idea, and it gives birth. And, then in achieving mastery, they say the first thing and the easiest thing that we will all experience is precipitation, which is what manifestation, I think, is more rightfully termed. And precipitation should not take time. If you want to precipitate something, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go get a job, save up for months or whatever, pay your taxes, and then finally be able to manifest something. The next thing, is teletransportation, realizing that you are not bound in this physical body and that it can be rematerialized in any point of your, intention. Also, the ability to manifest yourself in multiple locations, at similar times. These are all the rudimentary aspects, they say, in the teachings that you will go through, master one at a time, precipitation being the first. Precipitation, that's going to be really a wrinkle in the minds of the Federal Reserve System when we don't need their effing money anymore. We just manifest our needs on the spot. So, true education is going to lead kids to a place where they can actually, in their evolution, in their growing their awareness, they will be able to achieve mastery. That's what education should be about, not about training yourself so you can go get a job.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think, Mike, too? And the question is like, do you mean society as a whole will get there, after a bunch more incarnations? Because it's like, if you're going to stay in this system, none of that shit's actually useful to you right now, because it is go get a job place. Mike and I were having a laugh about this. Remember, we were saying like, there's a lot of people, they have these guardian spirits or angels and we were saying like, if you just knew you're like you're the best guardian angel you have is your higher self,
yeah,
right? But
we were talking
oh,
about
Mike.
this idea of the guardian of the threshold, like comes out of a lot of alchemical lore. It's supposedly some sort of entity, right? When you're starting to really go to the next level of your, into the other spiritual realm or whatever. They talk about it a bit in the book Zanoni and some of these other more esoteric books. And it's really, you are that. It's not some external entity. It's
Yeah, it's not
your,
another dude, right? It's not like
no,
I
it's
used to be Bob.
literally
Yeah.
your own shadow self or whatever that you need to face. And that's really what this is all about here, is like us figuring out that element. And that's what a lot has been occulted. But yeah, I don't know, Steve, if I don't know if it ever gets to the point where all of humanity wakes up. I don't think that's how this place is designed. And I think if it does get too out of balance, it just resets. So the physicality of this place just resets and we have cataclysm and then we start over, and it's just the physical. it's just literally the physical element here, and that's why it's good not to get too caught up in the physical materialism, because then we get into fear again. Oh no, the world's going to end, the poles are going to shift, it's all going to come to an end and I'm screwed, versus self-mastery once again, and moving on the next level. So, but yeah, I don't think everybody, that's why I like what Kelly Brogan has, really been putting forth for the last few years. It's like this, it is in a weird way, like a savior complex kind of thing, where it's up to us to save and wake everybody else up. No, it's really not. In fact, that is another form of sort of egoic weakness, and victimhood in and of itself in that thinking.
That also, it actually puts the victim mentality on them, right? Because you're saying, well, you can't help yourself. You need my help to wake you up. You're basically saying you're a worthless pile of shit.
It's like the problem with every classic white woke libtard, right? They're the most racist in an ironic way, because
they're hilarious. The whiteys who run the Black Lives Matter and all that stuff. It's all the Karens with a clipboard, and yeah, they're crazy. I mean, those revolutions are crazy because none of them are meant to be won. They'll never, like, Black Lives Matter will never get what they want. The rainbow, all the other. I think it's Pride Month or whatever right now, but they're not going to get what they want. They're there so that they're going to lose, but they keep collecting more and more of them, like a ball of hair. Like a tumbleweed collects more and more weeds as it tumbles. They're just collecting minorities, and when they got more of them, they make a new one to bitch about. And then in the end, they'll be the majority hairball, right? And then if you're not in on it, then we're the ones they want to get done. But Yuri Brezmenov said it to G. Edward Griffin. He said, in the end, when the real people take charge, the hairballs are the first to go, because they'll be the most disillusioned that, oh, you mean that we're not in charge after all? And they're like, yeah, now you're the most dangerous to the establishment. So you guys are going up against the wall, So those movements, I wish people could see. I've got so many family members they're into various ones of these, you know what I mean? And they think, I used to be like a liberal, you know what I mean? And now I'm like, I'm considered a conservative. What was his name? The guy who wrote this one. I'm having a blank. Robert Anton Wilson. Do you know that? Do you know him, the author from Chicago?
Well, he's like, isn't he like the Church of Satan or something? Or
no, he was just like a really one of these Kurt Vonnegut out there guys.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
But he said he said the only difference between a liberal and a conservative is 30 years.
Yeah.
So true, man.
Shit I used to think was like totally cool. Now I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's just crazy, But yeah, I've got a lot of family members and stuff where I actually sound like a Republican right-wing person to them. They don't know, like, I'm still pretty cool, but shit don't fly that used to fly for me before I woke up.
Yeah. It's funny how that dialectic works too, like how there's this need to set forth a specific political force right now. It happens to be right wing, right? And then the left rises up, and then there's like a shift, and then it goes left and right, left, right, right. And I think it's another exciting thing is people are getting out of that left brain thinking altogether and are seeing through it, and aren't, like Bear said in the beginning of the show, they're not buying into this like current protest stuff that's going on all over the United States. It's like, it's clear that this is all part of the strategy once again. And I love it. I've seen a couple clips on Instagram of Chicanos calling it all out. Like, you guys are idiots. Like, you guys are morons. You're falling for this trap again. So
and a lot of the Black community as well, it's just I had a great experience because when I was playing ball, we're kind of maybe a little bit more than a third of the team was white dudes, the rest were Black guys or Tongans or whatever. And it's the best way to get to mingle people is you just go out there and bust each other's chops, and you you literally are colorblind or just become your lifelong friends. But the point I wanted to make is that was a different generation. And I still have some of my best buddies that are, different races, and, uh, they sound just the same. They look at the black youth like, what a bunch of freaking idiots, and they aren't down for all the new stuff. The other thing is too is, when we're playing ball, you play a few years of pro and you might make some dough where you go buy a house or something, but you still have to get a job when you're done. Whereas now you sign a $30 million bonus, and so it's a, they've infiltrated money. Money is basically, the carrot that they use to get everybody to go with the agenda. But yeah, the Karens and people that are trying to be non-racist, and the truth of the matter is they've never left their, little suburban neighborhoods that they grew up in the first place, and they're trying to be all trendy and everything. So yeah,
Well, the best is when we're on the sort of security of a nation having borders and stuff, and they're all against that. And then when someone asks them, "Okay, would you like to take in this migrant family into your home?"
Oh yeah.
It's just like a straight blank white pale face.
I don't
Just
have,
like,
funny enough, that spare bedroom, I'm using it right now for office supplies.
yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah,
I hate when people, but like, because I'm a musician from Chicago. I had black guys in my original band, and then I was the only white guy playing rhythm in an all black band. I'm not colorblind. I hate when people go, I'm colorblind. I'm like, I'm not stupid. I know you're black, you're Hispanic, you're Chinese. Like, I hate when people don't just own up to it. I'm not racist or against you for it, but I hate people, or like white people who talk with black ebonics, because I
Oh,
grew up
that's so
around
demeaning.
black people. There's a comedian, he's like, yeah, well, I grew up with a cocker spaniel, but I don't walk around going.
Yeah, and once again, it's about, taking pride in who you are and where you come from, and not getting steeped in the materialism of color of skin, but still respecting. And this is the spiritual path. It's respecting the matter of the physicality. That's why we're here, is to have this experience. And so, yeah, take pride in your blackness or your whiteness or your yellow, whatever, and like, it's just a color, it's just physical stuff in the end. It's like we're all here to move past that. And that's why I love comedy, dude. Like a good comedian can just go rip into all of these sort of really these cultural norms of trying to be, you know tiptoeing around race and stuff. And because it's funny, we can explode all of that out in the front, and help us see how ridiculous all of these social conventions are and those political correctness. And unfortunately, there's just not a lot of great comedians anymore, even though it does seem to be bouncing back a little bit. But yeah, man.
We can't play that. We can't play that Norm Macdonald clip I sent you. That's not YouTube friendly.
Oh, which one was that? He's got so many great
Oh,
ones.
my son. I can't say it. I can't.
Oh,
It's
the
too
gay
dirty.
one. The
Oh,
gay
yeah, the one
one
about my son goes to Harvard, and by the
Oh,
way,
yeah,
he
yeah, yeah,
sucks.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is a family friendly show, but like that's the thing. It's like, you know, like that was what's so great growing up, and even the ex-Jenners bear, like in the locker room and stuff. We just totally ragged on each other for like the
Oh
color of our
yeah.
skin and stuff. It was just fun, man. It wasn't
Yeah.
like people had thicker skins, I
And
guess,
what
back
the
then.
hell is a white person? That's what I'd like to know. I mean, like just the three of us sitting here have, quite a mix of racial diversity, but it's like white people. It's like, well, what? Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, German, Dutch, the most racially diverse, people on the planet. But it's just all part of the theater, and some people fall for it and others don't.
I think a
Um,
lot of it is the historic, like when you start looking into these stories where all this comes from, the history is, the whole story about slavery in the United States and all that. When you really go digging into that, it doesn't appear to be what it is on the outside, and
yeah,
you owe us for all this, and it's like, well, I mean, you don't hear the British saying to Italians, well, the Romans took over our country for 800 years, so we want
Yeah.
repatriation, reparation. It's like, dude, it's get over it. You know what I mean? Like, this is us now. It's time to move on. I see it a lot here in Europe where I live. Like the English, they're like, I don't really hate the French. You're like, it's funny though, you do fucking hate the French because you always act like it. They all seem to hate each other, like they can't let it go. And they say we don't really hate each other, and you're like, yeah, but then you can't stop talking about it. So don't you, or
Well,
do you really?
you did have like a 30 years war, and you did have about 40 or 50 wars in the 19th century. So uh, there's a lot of history of fighting and killing. And then also, strangely enough, all of your leaders and kings and queens all had sex with each other with like the 5 different families and all ruled these different countries that you all hate each other. So yeah, Europe's such a trip, man. But yeah, do you ever see yourself coming back to the States, Steve, or you're just Euro boy now?
I mean, I've been here more than half my life now. Because I moved here in '98, so I'm turning 50. Well, I'm not turning 25 again. Maybe 24. I almost fell for the trap myself. Um, so I really don't feel American anymore. Culture. I actually don't feel European. I don't feel anything. I just like living here. I
Yeah,
would if I came to America. I'm not going back to cold ass Chicago again. I would probably go somewhere south, Arizona maybe, or Nevada, or New Mexico, or I don't know,
somewhere
California.
warm, in other
I'll stay
words.
out of California. Yeah, Florida. Yeah, go. Yeah, somewhere warm but cool. I'm not going to like well, you guys live in California. I mean, it's a lefty woke state, but it's a huge state even then, right? Like where you guys are at, it's not.
It's really not a lefty woke state at all. It's only in LA and San Francisco and, other centers. Yeah, otherwise, I mean, if you want to look at politics, it's more of a red state, overwhelmingly.
That's how Illinois is. Like Chicago is all Democrat and the rest are in the KKK.
Mhm. You know,
I know.
it's
I've been to Southern Illinois. Wow.
Dude, I was a Saluki for a year. I went to SIU, man. I was out in the cornfields with the children of the corn, man. They're special people down there.
We look at a lot of places all the time because Deb and I are, someday want to winter someplace else, and because it gets pretty wet here. And so we've been doing real estate searches everywhere, and there's, I feel like a man without a country now. All the places that I used to love are all so altered that, like Hawaii, we just said, oh, for sure, we're going to go back to Hawaii. It's completely overtaken. Communist government, just decimated Maui. There's just, not only did they level, kind of the heart of the whole island, with weaponry. But then if you go there now, there's homeless encampments. Same thing with Oahu, just old cars and things alongside the road that the county refuses just to come clean up. And also, we've looked into a lot of good research that shows that it's all being bought up and, being prepared for smart cities. Um, California, just south of us in Humboldt, which used to be wild and the Emerald Triangle and all that, it's now a tech center with fiber optics coming into Humboldt Bay, from Asia on the ocean floor. Arizona, same thing, just massive, sprawling California-like suburbs. So then we look at Europe, because I have dual citizenship. I can go to Italy anytime I want.
Oh yeah, you're
Um,
Italian, right? Yeah, that
yeah.
would be great.
So, but over there, it's like same thing. They're overrun with the whole invasion thing. The only place where I can still imagine where I'd like to move is to like Morea or someplace. out in the South Pacific, or Fiji. No, we lived in
I was
Fiji
just
for a
gonna
while.
say, like my roommate, the guy who rents the room for me, we have a joke like Micronesia, dude. We got to go to Micronesia. It's like
Yeah,
the last
yeah,
place they're not messing with you,
yeah,
and you can still live on the beach, you know.
yeah.
But that's a good thing you brought up because there's a lot of mentality like, do we stop and fight or do we run? Like, eventually, if we keep
Exactly.
running, they're gonna finally get to everywhere anyway.
Yeah.
So you might just be putting this off on your kids, one more generation, or your grandkids will deal with it. But do we do that or do we just put our foot
We
down and turn around
there,
and say,
we had
fuck
this
off?
conversation with Billy Bonds a few episodes ago, where great guy doing amazing things, permaculture farmer, and he's got, family, and he's saying it's you because he was right in the middle of that North Carolina debacle where they just flooded him out, and the stuff that he related as far as the toxicity, and he's saying, I'm probably going to get out of here. And so that opened the discussion: do we stay and fight, or do we, or just get out of here? Are we just going to go down inevitably with the ship? Uh, so yeah, tough call, tough call. If I didn't have family here, and grandkids, Deb and I would be bye bye. We'd be back in Fiji, someplace in that part of the world. Because the
Yeah.
other part, it's okay, stay and fight, and I'm American through and through, and really believe in the whole history and destiny of this country. At the same time, individually, we're all here for an even larger purpose, which is to you know, get off the wheel once and for all. And on the other side, we can affect more change than when we're in an embodiment. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
I think it's really like to get into these communes, I think it's gonna be like Brave New World and in 1984, where in Brave New World, all the people in the system lived in the little, techno city, but they go on vacation to the wild men. They actually like can get a leave to go out, and the wild men is what? It's just people living off the land. Now
Yeah.
they made them look in the movie and in the book, they make them look like savages, but they weren't. They were like regular people, you know what I mean? And same in 1984, the proletariats still live in London, drinking beer, singing in the pubs. Winston, all of them are under constant surveillance, but the New World Order would drop some bombs in there once in a while to make them still think they're at war. But I think they're going to leave you alone if you get in a little group and go out in the middle of Texas or California or whatever. I can't see like the government coming in and just wiping everyone out. I just don't see it. I don't know. What do you
Well,
guys?
that's why we
I
talk
think we need
about
to get out of cities, not get out of a country
I
or.
I was saying last night on my Substack, like if you're looking to find the ideal place, just be in a place where you won't have your neighborhood show up on CNN. In other words, like stay out of LA, Chicago, New York, all these centers where all these activities happening, and find yourself a good small town in an idyllic situation, and then have that be that decision be based around some quality of life measurements, right? Like what are you into? If, like, for instance, Bear's older son won't move up here because he loves to surf. He loves to surf down where he's at, and so like that's a huge priority in his life. And like, what are the priorities in your life in terms of the quality that you desire, the quality of your life? For us, it was having really high end quality water, and that was what attracted us to here on the Smith River, and the fact that also we are surrounded by such immense natural it's just like beauty in terms of like the mountains here and they're all national forests, but even if they were to just make these available for the private to buy, it's very, very hard to develop here because it's such rugged terrain. So I like Bear said, it's like nature, you can't mess with nature. Like Spengler said, the famous German historian, it's like civilizations, like man's civilization is always just a race against nature coming back and taking over, right? And so yeah, I think that is as far as strategizing where you're going to go, find a place that's just has abundant nature around you if possible. And then two, like Bear was saying, it's like about your journey. It's like what is your journey, finding out through that self mastery principle. and then adhering to those principles and doing the best you can with what you got. And whether that be your specific lifespan here is going to be about standing up for rights of others and doing that in a way that's in alignment with natural law, then that's going to be your thing. If your thing is about figuring out one cool innovation that the world's going to learn about, that's your thing. Like, everybody's got their own thing, right? There's no one size fits all.
The thing that's important to us too is the people that we're, surrounded by, because
Yep.
when we lived in other places, and particularly in Fiji, the mindset is so different that it was so refreshing. There's no such, nobody knew who the president of the United States was. They had no clue. We had a visitor come see us one time, this woman, and we're just out in the countryside and, visiting some people. And there's a Fijian family, and they're papayas, and these huge papayas. And so our friend had said, "How long does it take to grow one of those?" And the woman was perplexed, just looked at her, and she goes, "I don't know. They just grow." Um, and, to us, that was kind of where we're at, our true temperament. And even around here, we're completely off grid. We're here because we don't want dependency on anything. So we're completely self-sustaining. And we're in an area called Big Flat. And there's neighbors, but we're, great distances away. We're all aware of each other and everything. But, it's a mixed bag. We can't go in and have just the same conversation like you and I are having with them, nor are they in just more of a natural mindset like a Fijian. So that's why I keep going back to the South Seas. But the good thing about up here is you do have real independent thinking people. They don't believe in authority. And the other thing is we're all armed to the effing teeth. So don't even think about coming up here.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that, they're just what Mike was saying exactly. Now, there are people armed to the teeth who you meet. There are like all kinds of people. There are these "don't tread on me." They're armed to the teeth, and the thing they want most is to use. They want to take on the government in a firefight. Like, they are born to do that. And then there's people like you guys are like, "Dude, we don't want to fight, man. But if you do, it's gonna be nasty." So please,
Yeah,
just
if you do, it's a good day to die.
I mean, really, that's the other thing I was gonna say. Like, the only advice I'd give people where not to live is I would look at Agenda 21, Agenda 30. If you see high steam railroads being planned down a stretch of woods where 3 towns have suddenly magically lit on fire and you're next on the path, you might want to get the hell out of there. Or
Yeah.
where they're flooding you out with floods that never happened. Like, if it looks like it's them, you might want to get out of the line of the fire immediately and then take your stand later.
We always have that looming here because they love to set fires every single summer, and some of them are pretty horrendous. We've had to evacuate about half of the years that we've been here. So, and if that happens, then we move on.
There's something to be said too, just like where you are, Steve, like living in a community, a town, a city where that is your place, right? Where you feel comfortable, where, it's like we've talked in the past with other guests who've lived in the middle Manhattan or live, and like for me personally, I think it's good to be out of a place where your backyard might end up on CNN. But everybody's got their own mission, their own journey they're on, and some people thrive in those areas. And that's why the spirit, once again, going back to how we started this, right? The internal out, like, what is your spiritual power and how are you emitting that out into the world? Everybody's different. And I thank God that when I look at like the Alfa Vedic member map or the Music and Sky member map, we're dotting that entire land of the United States and beyond. I think that's cool because we all need a bit of the nodes of intelligence and nodes of consciousness in every area we can get right now that are listening to this show, for instance.
Totally, man. Just what Bear's saying, That's the cool thing about the internet is you can now meet you can't even talk to your neighbor like you're saying, you know what I mean? But you can meet like thousands and thousands of people around the world who are like-minded and can have conversations like this. Now you've got an option in the network. Should you need to get the hell out of there in a hurry or whatever, you know who to go to, not just where to go. You don't want to just go anywhere. You want to say, right, where are these people at? That's where I want to go, right? Because I hate
Well,
when
you can
people.
come to the Music and Sky Village, my friend. We're working
Yeah,
on,
camping
which will
out.
be grounded in the natural law, and it's going to be a fun experiment to not fall into the typical pitfalls of your commune or your community, and like people, aren't coming here to seek remedy from others. They're coming here fully embodied, hopefully, and there's going to be a process of that. Not anybody can join. You have to literally go through an entire process to be even accepted. And yeah, like be in a community like Bear is saying, where people are grounded in nature and like are more focused on their garden than watching CNN. Or sorry, I keep bashing CNN today, but I guess it's kind of deserved. And then, like there's that model too of sort of the ringing cedars, model coming out of Anastasia that we're really embracing too, which is really natural law, understanding what the true human is, the true man, the true womb man, and embracing that through a family aesthetic, of course, and really answering a lot of the issues here today: education, how kids are raised, how we get back to nature, but also how we respect the individual, respect consciousness, all that. So, yeah, it's a grand experiment, and we'll see how it goes.
I'm laughing, dude, because 2 days from now there'll be a gas explosion in your town. CNN will be there, and you'll be walking by with a surfboard. What's that monkey
Manifestation,
meme?
baby.
He's looking.
Manifestation.
You'll be on CNN, man.
Yeah.
And
be
also, I would tell
careful, right?
people like what the point of spirituality is: you don't fear death. It is what it is. It's coming anyway,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not. So you get busy living or get busy dying. You know what I mean? You can sit around here for 200 years like a Taoist, but if you're not enjoying yourself, then I don't see the point. I'd rather personally stay 70. I don't give a shit.
One of my favorite movies of all time, Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, love it to death. Yeah. It's the greatest movie ever. Yeah.
Yeah. But to bring this conversation full circle, breaking through the myth of separation, we don't need internet or anything. When any one of us, which is a node in consciousness, lights up, it lights up the whole unified energy field or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, doesn't matter where you're at, and doesn't matter if you're plugged into the internet or not. Just that's what we're here to do. Get the lights come
and
on.
it's funny because sometimes like something will tickle behind, in my chest or in my head, and I'm like, oh, I think I got to tell Steve this, and I'll look, and he's already messaged me, something right on that same level, in WhatsApp. And same with you, Bear. Like, how many synchronicities have we had? And just like, and that's not on accident. That's not some freak thing, right? Like, that's actually how it all works.
That's the manifestation. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I just wrote that thing today, and that's what you wanted to talk about. And I didn't know, like, it's happening more and more and more. That's the power of this manifestation. There isn't synchronicities. That's you living your path. That's synchronicity. It's not an accident. Like, you wouldn't believe what happened today. It's like, no, you wouldn't believe it because you don't know you did it.
And magic is not paranormal, it's natural law.
Yeah, science.
Absolutely.
Well, hey guys, this has been an amazing talk. I could talk to you two gentlemen for the next 5 hours, but that's just a fake construct anyways. So we'll end it now. And this has been such a pleasure, Steve. So what you got going on right now? Phil, just get us caught up real quick on your current projects, where people should go to find you that are new to your work, and all that jazz.
Yeah, Space Busters, YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, Vigilante.tv. If you need to contact me, please write spacebusters@hotmail.com. I get like 1,000 people hitting me up on Facebook Messenger for friends and whatever. I use Facebook to put stuff from my phone to my computer as a go between. I don't sit around chit chatting on Facebook, and like half the time, if I accept it, they write me 16 messages, or they're the kind of person where I look at their profile. How do I know you? We have 50 common friends, but then they're just a person who's posting 25 Facebook posts a day with no one engaging or liking, and I'm like, you're having a dopamine addiction, and I'm not trying to be surrounded by that. No disrespect to anyone who's doing that, but if that's what you're doing, please don't like include me. I've got other stuff, but I'm trying to finish my 3-part film series, Scamtarctica, which should be done pretty soon, where the globe is dead. And yeah, trying to enjoy summer, raise my kid, and have a good time and stay away from the controlled conspiracy people. Real quick, we were laughing. I hope I can tell this story. Mike and I in Acapulco, we were in the waves having a Brokeback Ocean moment. And I said, like, how the hell did you like meet Bear? Like, how are you friends? And he said, oh, his son and I were in college together or whatever. And he said, when he finally met you, he didn't know what to say. And he went up to you and said, so how about that Alex Jones, right? Or something like that. I was like, I'm surprised he still talks to you, dude. But that's the other thing real quick is, yeah, I think people are waking up to a lot of what I would call the controlled freedom movement or awake movement. I think we have to watch out for who we're following and listening to. I would actually say don't listen to anybody or follow anyone except your own heart and feeling. But that's me. But awesome to be on again, guys. I don't know if we even made a point today, or hopefully good. But
I
it
had
was
fun.
nice
That's
to
all that
chat.
matters.
Yeah, I had a great time. Hopefully we'll do it again. That would be lovely. It was great.
There's a good chin wag, as they say in Oz. And and you're not going to be in the Etheric Summit because you got a gig, right?
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm going to be on the road in Sweden. I really wanted to. I got invited to that. Are you going to talk on there?
So Bear Lando is on
Awesome.
Sunday. Here's a
Yeah.
So
quick
what?
plug.
It's called the Etheric Summit.
Yeah, it's the Etheric Summit that's organized by Austin Whitsitt, and it is going to be featuring a lot of friends of Alfacast and friends of Steve Falconer. I believe Tom Cowan and Amanda Vollmer, Andrew Kaufman. Um, who else? There's going to be, I guess, a sort of debate between Jaron and Whitsitt on Saturday, which should be interesting. And I really appreciate what Whitsitt's done, what Austin's done is sort of, moving more into the ether and the true sciences and getting out of that false dialectic of flat globe sort of thing. So Bear will be on Sunday afternoon. Check it out. You can go to Etheric Summit, and that's spelled with the AE. So AETHERIC summit.com/bear, BARRE. I'll throw that in the chat right now. And
I guess I should learn more about what this is all about before I show up on Sunday, huh?
Yeah,
Hi,
so
everybody.
it's literally about what we just talked about today. Like,
Okay, I'll fake it.
And yeah, so anyways, that's great. Look forward to that this weekend. Happy Father's Day to all you Father's Days out there, even though every day's Father's Day, right? Just like every day's Mother's Day.
Another
And
psyop, man. It's a Hallmark psyop.
yeah, this is the end of psyoptism. We were talking about that too. Like
Psyoptism. Yeah.
right? It's the end of all that nonsense. So hey, thanks,
I'm
Steve.
looking
Thanks.
forward to Father's Day because I'm getting some merch from Kelly Slater's surf camp. My kids are on their way back from it now, so I told them to fix me up. That's my Father's Day present.
You're stoked. I am going to be working that connection to get to the surf ranch. That's going to be happening. I will be getting barreled finally in my life. Well, that's awesome, Bear. Enjoy that. And I'm going to take my father on a round of golf. The thing he loves to do the most. So, and with my boys. So, I've gotten back into golf. I've gotten back into golf, actually. I don't know, Steve, if you've ever, I don't know if I could see you out there with sort of like the floppy hat and the old school baggy pants, maybe.
Dude, I'm a 14 handicap, man. I've been down to just under 12 before. I don't
Oh,
play much anymore. I've been golfing since I was 7 with my old man. I love golf.
Oh, that's
I love
incredible.
golf too. I started when I played football, in the off season where I'd go out with my buddies, most of them were black guys from East LA. So every hole was a beer and a joint, and it's where you could win the days when you could wear your flip flops and tank top. And last time I played in Maui, I go out there and we had to put on shirts and games changed up. But golf is awesome. It's a great game.
Tom Cowan's apparently really good. I think he's
He
just,
doesn't. He,
single digits handicap guy. He's really supposed to be really
he
good.
he's excellent, and I guess was even trying to make a run for the senior tour, and fell short and gave up golf, so he doesn't play anymore.
That's right. I
That's
That's
remember
a
that
shame.
story. So he
that's
was
Tom
good.
Cowan in a nutshell, right there. Amazing. I was hanging out with his son Asher actually at Confluence, who's another. He's tall. They're a tall family. But anyways, yeah, I played golf to that note barefoot on Sunday with my kid. I love playing golf barefoot.
John Daly
Um,
still golfs barefoot, man. When he's out, he's got a beer in one hand. He's like me, and then you barefoot, is chipping one handed. Great.
like when he's putting, he literally rests his cocktail on his gut.
I could do that too. Well, that'll be on
Good
my
times.
bucket list, man. When eventually I'll come out to you guys, and we'll all have to get a game of golf going, man. We'll get time. We gotta get a golf game together for reals.
For that, I'll go out.
Let's make that happen. That's going to happen. And love you, brother. Thanks for joining us today. And remember, guys, get outside, get your feet in the dirt, go plant something, go for a hike, go show Mother Nature some love. She'll show it right back in spades. And we'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every Thursday.